This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Now, David, just tell us what the Spanish news media are saying about Carlos Puigdemont, who's been arrested using a European arrest warrant.
Well, the news is that now it's a matter of he's going to be sent back here because it's been very intense. He's been detained and he faces up to 30 years.
30 years?
Yes, for rebellion and secession, things that normally means using weapons. But here the only weapon was like not bullets but ballots.
Yeah.
But in Spain, ballots, they always said that as far as you don't use violence, you can talk about everything. But that was a lie. Because when we tried everything democratically, what we get is batons and rubber bullets and everything on the other side. So it's time to call it a day, or more to call it a 300 years. And I'm proud to announce here that since we spoke last, Directa 68, the party I have the honor to preside, is a reality already.
Yep.
So we hope we're going to challenge the present state of things.
Absolutely.
It's very intense week because they tried to elect one president, but then these 5 members of Catalan government were brought to Madrid to court, and now they've been imprisoned. That was Friday, which made one of them was the one who was standing to try to be president. Jordi Turull didn't pass in the first round to become president. So a second round was supposed to happen on Saturday. But in between that, Friday, him and 4 other relevant members of Catalan government for something as organizing a referendum have been put in prison and are facing up to 30 years as well. That makes the number of 9 people in prison and 6 people in so-called exile in different countries, including Clara Ponsatí, which used to be dean in St. Andrews University in Scotland.
Wow.
And it's like everything. It's like everything is incredible. And I understand, and I want to make a call to the Catalan people not to fall in the provocation, not start cutting roads, and not fall the call for a general strike, because that's where I would like to. Here's the end of the official relate. And now it's where I want to tell the real truth. That's why we are here in the Truth Frequency Radio, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. That's absolutely fine. David, we always support democratic movements here, and the Catalan situation has always been democratic. And I've marched myself with the students of Girona against austerity. And all of these movements that we've seen in recent years, they've always been properly done. And as we saw with the referendum in Catalonia just recently, there were international observers. Not one single international observer came forward and said, no, that ballot was done wrong. So we know that the democratic situation in Catalonia is absolutely perfect. The only problem which we've got is we've got the Gestapo on their doorsteps.
Yes, but they have the Gestapo that hits, but they also have secret services that have devised a cunning plan that somebody would say if it was Blackadder.
Yeah.
A cunning plan, and that's where I need to make a clean break. So what I've told now, it's the official mainstream pro-independence line, okay? We are very angry because this thing happened.
Yeah.
And that would be the end of it if I didn't know some of these people for 30 years, if I hadn't been fighting them for 4 years, if they hadn't broken a hunger strike by interning me in a mental place and torturing me and pushing me to suicide. Because I know for a fact, because we've studied this, and that's why we set up a political party.
Yeah.
Most, if not all, the people that have been put in prison are actually Spanish moles. And the situation is to create action-reaction solution that is very known.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They both control the action. They decided to raise tension by putting these people in prison, by activating the Euro order. It's not very clear why Carles Puigdemont didn't stay in Brussels Friday, which is the normal thing to do when you know that some of your government is going to Madrid on their own volition.
Yeah, I have to tell you that, David, that the BBC have said that he had to go on this journey because he was required to appear in front of a judge.
No, but that was the second step of that. But normally, if Friday, a lot of members of your government are going to Madrid and maybe being put in prison, and that's the possibility that might spark the Euro order, because there's also something very relevant is the very relevant politician fled the courts Friday. So that has been the reason or the excuse to reactivate the Euro order. So the normal thing...
Now, let me just stop you there, David, because I've got a question. The BBC, this is only yesterday morning, okay? I was driving around. I've covered a lot of miles because I'm filming a TV series, and I'm listening in my car, and they said that there was a vote and that one of the pro-independence candidates had lost by 4 votes.
Well, it's not as a matter of, they've lost by 4 votes, but that's because a splinter party, which is supposed to be independent, didn't vote for him.
Yeah, but the thing is, but hang on a minute. Every election, when you count ballots, has a plus and minus error margin of at least 1.5%.
No, but we're talking about members of parliament here. That's what positive BBC meant.
I see. That's why I couldn't understand it.
4 members of parliament didn't vote what was expected of them to happen. But as far as we know, I've had problems with this splinter party. They all work together. So they all follow the script. They didn't have to give these 4 votes, which were not needed in the second round. So all the show could happen on Friday. On Friday, this politician flees. She fleeing gives the excuse to Spain to put the 5 others in prison. And Carles Puigdemont is supposed to be called off guard in Finland, where he should never have been, considering the things going on Friday. So it is very suspicious, and lots of people say that he's handed himself, because actually he works for them.
Oh, right, I see. So you're saying that
Europe by car.
I see. So you're saying that Puigdemont himself could possibly be all part of this pantomime.
Not totally. I studied him in chapter 3 in Radio Hadrian, the program.
I see. I see. That explains a lot, actually.
Every member of Catalan government and practically parliament. If we go to the truth, this guy, Carles Puigdemont, is the only guy in the history that has avoided Catalan independence twice in the period of 1 month last October. So actually, if you go to the fact and you forget what mainstream media feeds us, he has done the biggest service to Spain by non-declaring independence twice in October. So now, perverse as it might seem, Spain is protecting their own moles by pretending to attack them, because all these people, the last 3 months, they have been disappointed and bringing down independence, saying, we're not enough people, we were not ready, unilateral way is not the right way. What we did was only symbolic. It was a political but not juridical. All these people now, that people were starting to see for what they are, which is infiltrators and traitors, now they have been revamped as heroes because of what has happened these last 3 days.
Wow. Now, David, we've got the news coming up. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we'll come back to you after the news. One thing I've got to say to you, David, before we go into the news, do you remember that we did a show, this is maybe about, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and I read live on air, and you were a guest on that show, I read Article 2 and Article 9 of the Lisbon Treaty live on air, and the Lisbon Treaty clearly says you are not allowed to open fire or be violent against unarmed citizens of Europe. That's one of the articles. Did you remember I read that live on air?
I almost remember what I answered to that, and I said yes.
Yeah. Well, hang on a minute, right? That I got that from LisbonTreaty.org, which is a European Union website, and it has all of the information about the Lisbon Treaty, and it also said that you have to respect democracy in Europe. Okay, that's what the Lisbon Treaty says, and I read it on air, and I read the text live on air from Lisbon-Treaty.org. Do you know what they've gone and done, David? They've gone and taken that text off.
That's well.
Wow.
I'll tell you later another example of things being taken off. I'll tell you after the news.
For you. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'll tell you after the news another example of that.
Yeah.
Or if you want now, it lasts 30 seconds.
Yeah, go on. Just give us
I've
last.
denounced that Carlos Puigdemont is a mole because he associated with somebody he would never associate to set up a newspaper called Catalonia Today. And I've been saying that several times in Radio Hadrian in our program. And you know what? The pictures of the two of them together have been removed from internet recently. Peculiar, isn't it?
Holy cow. I mean, Do you know what? This is like a real life. It's like one of those movies that you used to see about the life of Stalin or Trotsky. And this is happening right now in the 21st century in Europe.
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I think things are going after the news. Where I think all this action-reaction or this problem-solution is going. Because I have a clear... We've been mentioning it for 4 years. And what's happening after the day, it's happening what I already mentioned in a video 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think we should tell people where we think this is going.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got the news coming up. We're going to be coming back to David, but we're also going to be with Rod because, believe it or not, there's been a multi-million-pound movie produced in Hollywood which peculiarly and strangely seems to be following a lot of the subjects that Rod has been discussing on this very show during the last 18 months.
Bit of coincidence.
This is a brand new movie. And it kind of follows exactly what Rod has been saying on lots of the broadcasts which we've done together. And all of a sudden, since, Rod became a co-host, this is about 18 months ago, how many views have you had, Rod, in total on your YouTube?
I'm just checking now.
It's about
3.6 million.
3.6 million. Now, I tell you now, I told Rod... Oh, we've got a break coming up.
Yeah, we got a break.
Before he came on the show that, he should come on the show because lots of people be interested. I think he had 2,000 or something when he joined. Now, Hollywood are picking up on the actual subjects which we've been discussing. Okay, we've got the news coming up. We'll be back in 3.5 minutes.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
It's good evening to all of our listeners in Europe. This is Chris Everard beaming out live and clear. We have Mr. Rod Scarf, who is statistically and truthfully the world's most famous hypnotist. We have Mr. Duncan Campbell, and you must get a piece of paper and a pen because me and Duncan are going to be discussing some good movies and recommending some good films for people. We've got Scotty Lopez in Kansas, and I have to say to you, Scott, there are still people sharing your post where you identified that the earthquake in southern Wales, it was near Bristol, happened, the epicenter of that quake was right next to where they had fracking going on. And your post has been shared more than 7,500 times now. And it's like 3 weeks or 4 weeks old and it's still being shared. So how about that? And then live from Barcelona, we've got David. David is right in the thick of it. I have to say also that Rod, where Rod is broadcasting from, back in August the 28th last year, just literally up the road from where Rod is now, there was a mysterious toxic cloud. And more than 200 people, they were just holiday makers. It was the August bank holiday. They had to be hosed down. They had to be decontaminated because this mysterious cloud came along and people had breathing problems. And it was, there was these big trucks appeared from nowhere with people in those HazChem suits with gas masks and everything. That happened at a place called Berlin Gap. It's not far from where Rod is. And funnily enough, Rod lives only a stone's throw from where this Russian guy, who is actually an MI6 agent, let's be honest about it, and his daughter were found slumped on a park bench outside a Superdrug in the Maltings shopping centre in Salisbury. And Rod, he's lived in Wiltshire for many years, and that happened in Wiltshire. So, and we've got David in Barcelona. So talk about a current show. Now, what we're going to do, we're just going to go back to David, get an update with what's happening with the people that are protesting, and then we're going to go to Rod, who's live in Dover. Now, David, just to wrap up with you, we don't promote any kind of violence or anything like that ever on this show. Has there already been police violence like we saw during the democratic referendum? Have the Gestapo already been beating up people on the streets as we're speaking right now on air in Barcelona?
Friday there were some beating, but
right.
I think the question is about to begin, because if this was 4 years ago,
yeah,
I would be with the people with the pants and all in front of the Spanish offices, because 4 years ago I was going with the flow and I was following the wrong pipers. The question we're seeing now is that we know for certain that there's infiltrators in the Catalan field that are promoting people going to these places and trying to raise spirits, the high spirits. So I'm quite afraid that tonight something might happen, because Spain is playing this on both sides. Spain is running both sides. The solution here, the question is 4 years ago. I'd like to explain this with a bullfighting metaphor, which is very typical of Spain, though bullfighting is forbidden in Catalonia. But it will serve to use it. Before they kill a bull in a bullfight, there's this guy on a horse called Picador that diminishes it a lot by hurting it a lot.
Yeah.
Then there's another guy, Banderillero, that puts irons in the back of the bull. And then it's easier to kill it. The example is 4 years ago, the Catalan pro-Indi movement was a strong bull. We had 40 points difference. And there was no way Spain could rig any referendum or do anything about it. 4 years ago, we were unbeatable. So that's why Spain has promoted these moles that have been fighting one another and doing all kind of weird things, not going together on elections. We won 4 times, but they didn't apply the results we delivered them.
Yeah.
So we are run totally by moles working for the other side. And the thing is going now, they're raising tension. So then international mediation will have to happen. And the solution will be an agreed Scottish-style referendum, which will be lost. Not only lost because it would be rigged the day of the referendum.
Absolutely. Well, we all know this. The Scottish referendum was totally rigged.
And we know that there's people with inside information, because the betting shows that lots of people in the city of London knew beforehand the result. And somebody put £1 million on the result on something that was even, which is weird.
Yeah.
But the question is, they've already rigged it by postponing this for 4 years.
Yeah.
Timing is essential. If a plane doesn't take off in the right time, it crashes.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
They put off taking off here for 4 years, and now we've had violence and we've had companies leaving and all the usual mafia ways to scare one people into this. So now the question is, now there's going to be tension. The magic solution will be an agreed referendum for 2020, which I've been saying like for 6 years ago now, or 4 years ago. And now I have to say that this film, because this is scripted, the script, the main actors on both sides, and the producer is Spain. And the Catalans, we only playing the stunts. We go and we vote and we get beaten the 1st of October.
Yeah.
And then we go to concentrations. But we need to activate our brain. We need to do like a parachute and open our brain.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Realize that these people that now we see as heroes are the ones that made independence impossible a few months ago. So we shouldn't trust them just because, and it's very difficult, because what I'm saying, it's going to be the truth in 10, 15 years' time, but then it will be too late. So now we have to make something very difficult, which is to change history as it's happening.
Yeah.
We're not here to be told in 15 years' time, oh, David, you were so right. That's not why we're doing what we're doing. We're putting our lives at stake to change history, because we have a majority for independence in Catalonia, but we are run by leaders that work for the other side, and that makes impossible independence. That's why we are doing this documentary called The Lie, which will explain the lie we've been suffering for 4 years.
Yep.
And we're setting up a digital newspaper. We set up this political party, Directa 68, 68 is the minimum number of seats to declare independence straightforward. And we keep growing every day. We're going to do a book. We have a radio program, Radio Hadrian, and I'm proud to say that I'm part of the leaders of this movement.
Yeah.
That I started 4 years ago.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we are convinced that the truth will prevail because most people are opening their eyes. And if we can have nice or powerful allies like Truth Frequency Radio, I'm sure we're going to
absolutely. Listen, David, I've seen this type of thing in many different countries, okay? I mean, I was broadcasting all the way through the 2 Egyptian revolutions. I was even in Egypt in 2011, just shortly after they had the revolution. I broadcast all the way through the Arab Spring situation. And what I would say is this, is that if there are old people and disabled people and pregnant women and children being psychologically terrorized or even beaten by those Gestapo, and you see yet again old people bleeding on the streets of Spain, on the streets of Catalonia, if those pictures are seen yet again, the public opinion or the public trust in the royal family of Madrid will be completely and utterly shattered. In actual fact, it's already shattered because millions of people do understand that this has been a proper democratic campaign. And when we saw that really, I mean, you know, it must have been harrowing. It was harrowing to see people being smashed over the head with truncheons while they're holding up their hands. These are unarmed members of the public. That traumatized millions of television viewers. Okay, so they've already lost it. Okay, and do you know what? Public confidence in politicians is dead. Public confidence in the BBC is dead. This is why 61 million people voted for Trump. This is why people voted for Brexit. The New World Order is really basically, I mean, the old days of where they used to be able to give out a single story via the BBC and CNN and everybody used to believe it, you know, those days are over. The viewing figures of the mainstream media are so low now. The newspapers, listen, most of these mainstream newspapers are struggling financially. The only reason that they're still going is because the royal political elite need the support of these newspapers. Okay, we are in a situation now where literally tens of millions of British people have lost confidence in the BBC. It's not just Jimmy Savile. It's not just Rolf Harris. It's not just, you know, all the kind of shenanigans that have been going on there and all these people that are in prison and Max Clifford who died in prison recently. It goes way deeper than this. When you watch the BBC News, you know that you're watching propaganda. And the thing is that the internet is slowly being censored and it's slowly being curtailed, and Facebook has nothing but disdain for its users. And you can see that there is now a hardening of the top 10, 12 companies that control all of the information on the internet. And the internet is going to be dumbed right down. Bear in mind, there's not a single TV show or TV series anywhere that I know of that even tells you anything positive about what you can find on the internet.
Chris, can I jump in there?
You know, go on then, Rod. Yeah.
In actual fact, there's a person in England called Christopher Pye who takes the proverbial out of the government, etc., you know, tongue-in-cheek, and he was actually done and sued for telling his truth about the government.
Wow.
This week.
Well, that's like Stalin, isn't
he's
it?
a comedian. He's a comedian in this country called Christopher Pye. You know, he's an actual comedian, tongue-in-cheek, but he was, because he actually jumped up and said what he thinks, he's being sued.
Wow.
For thinks.
We've
I'll tell
had
you
a
now,
rapper
that is
here condemned to 3 years and a half.
Sorry, David, say that again.
We have a rap singer
Yeah.
sentenced to 3 years and a half.
Wow,
for
3.5 years.
Talking wrong about the royals and all.
Wow. And
On what
I'd
you
like
said
to say
about
to
media,
I'd like to say to all the American listeners that Lauryn Hill, who is the lead singer of the Fugees, everyone knows the Fugees, yeah? Lauryn Hill was told by a judge that she was told by a judge that she had to go back and have some re-education because she'd been reading articles about conspiracies.
So true.
they tried to re-educate me the hard way, I can tell you. But I agree with what you say about the BBC and all. But my experience is that they're reaching the same objective 3 different ways now.
Yeah.
Because they have to avoid us reaching the truth. A lot of people that come out as dissidents, in my experience, are just limited hangouts or gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Because
but I tell you what,
I've been fighting this for 4 years, and I've had very bad experiences with WikiLeaks, with so-called investigative journalists in Spain. I even tried Snowden or Glenn Greenwald, and I didn't get the answers one would expect when one comes with the kind of story I come with. So I know that the big ones are falling, but the powers that be know this. And I think sometimes we are naive to think that I see it like the doping and anti-doping thing, like the ones with illegal substances advance and the control also advances. So it's a competition to the end.
Yeah, but I tell you what Rod was saying about this comedian, parody and sarcasm is actually allowed under law, under the fair use guidelines and also the freedom of expression laws and holding an opinion, that if you make a parody of something or you make a sarcastic remark or it's done like Rod was saying by a comedian, that is protected under law. What law they use to put a comedian in the dock, I don't know.
That's why you always say, Chris, allegedly. I always say allegedly.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder of Truth Frequency Radio. It is with the deepest sorrow that I have to inform everyone of the passing of our shaman, teacher, healer, and fellow TFR host, William Whitecrow. William has been our guide throughout this journey, and him and Sue became like the parents we never had. We both learned so much from him, and he was on countless radio shows with us over the last 10 years, even hosting his own program, Quantum Quest. Cherie and I also share a very sacred bond with William, as he performed the Native American wedding ceremony for us on December 21st, 2012, which binded us together. As William was the sole provider, we would like to help out the family by covering the funeral expenses. Please visit tfrlive.com/whitecrow, and you will be redirected to the GoFundMe page. Or you can click on the banner on our front page. Thank you so much for your love and support.
The Trump team